Okay, game number 5. We have Total Biscuit CranK, and he is the pink Protoss down in the bottom left of Cloud Kingdom, and he is trying to not get all killed by this guy. It is the red Zerg in the top right, TSL.HyuN, our reigning champion.
All right, so HyuN versus CranK once again. 5th time we've seen this. Seems like we spent more time doing intros than anything else during this set so far because HyuN has not made any of these games last very long.
That's true. I mean, it's sad, but it's true. He's, doing basically the same thing again here, piling out in front, sending that probe to go check things out in HyuN land. HyuN most likely going to be going for just really fast hatcheries again. That's what he seems to be fond of, and it is working out just fine. That mind game on the last map is, again, just really kind of heartbreaking. CranK saw no Roach Warren, 3 hatches. What he ended up getting was a face full of roaches and lings. No
one likes a face full of roaches and lings.
That's true. They're freaky, man. You should get a face full of roaches all over your face. That's terrible.
That's horrible. Yeah. Horrific. I actually can't sleep for the next 3 weeks now.
So I'm wondering, I actually have a cockroach story that's like really terrifying.
Oh, God.
Do you want to hear it? Should I tell the story?
We're delving into this.
Okay, so the first house that I lived in as a child was damaged by Hurricane Hugo in South Carolina. And basically we ended up moving out of the house because the damage was basically too much to justify fixing the house. And so we ended up moving like a mile away into the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
But during that period after Hugo, we still had to live in the house. So all of our stuff was more or less intact. It was just like one of the walls was knocked down and stuff like that. So it was a little too naturey for our liking. So cockroaches did manage to get into the house. There was one time where I had a can of Coke on the counter. I was 4 years old, or 4 or 5 years old, and I reached up onto the counter for this can of Coke and put it to my lips, and a cockroach came out of the can, and I could feel its feelers, its little hands on my lip. And I flipped out and threw the can across the room, and then now I've been scared of roaches for like the rest of my life.
Oh, that's almost exactly the same story that I was at a picnic, and it was a wasp for me, though. So a wasp, and I drank a wasp, and I actually swallowed it, and it stung me on the way down. So that's my horrific, ridiculous bug story. That's weird you say that, though, because I had almost exactly the same story, but with wasps. So
when you can feel a bug touching your lip, that is just
I still hate all stinging insects as a result of that. I just can't. Anytime you catch me out at a park or something like that, I'm so afraid of every bee.
Oh my goodness, that is horrifying.
Oh, anyway, hey, we've got a game. Stop talking about horrific insect stories. It's pretty normal stuff on both sides so far. HyuN, of course, like I mentioned before, loves to send out 2 drones at the same time, one to the natural, one to the third. In this case, there wasn't effective enough probe block that he had to put down his hatchery over at the third. We'll see if CranK can maybe exploit that with a quick 2-base timing attack. He himself, though, looks like it was a Forge first, Nexus afterwards. He's already got that cannon in place. So a little bit slower on the economy, but everything looking pretty darn standard for him.
That's right. CranK, now, I mean, it's all on CranK here, right? Because HyuN's already shown us he knows what he's doing. CranK, I want to see something different out of you. I don't really have any suggestions at the moment. Phoenix play is the only thing I can think of that could be fun to try. Or, just not getting that robo facility quite so fast.
He's kind of doing that again,
Making more units. Make more units, man.
Well, this is... okay, no, there it is. 3 gas coming up at the same time, a little bit later than you would normally see 2 gas. So this is the same thing we saw in games number 2 and 3.
Yep. and that doesn't excite me. That doesn't make me think that CranK is going to win based on that build. I mean, I'm sure that on the ladder and training and all this stuff, this build has been performing wonders for him, or he wouldn't fall back on it so often. But man, it's just not working against HyuN, and it's the definition of insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting a different outcome. That's what CRANK's doing. He's just been doing the same build every time.
Well, that's 2 weeks in a row that's happened. It was similar to what Major did against HyuN last time.
And that didn't work.
No. And HyuN has pretty much thrown a wrench in CRANK's plans every game. He's 6-pooled. He's roach rush. He's done a conventional 3-base. He had one where he was trying to go, or he was thinking about a little more tech, but then he found a really nice opportunity to just rush in. I mean, we saw 3-base the conventional way like we're seeing here. We saw 3-base before pool as well on Antigua Shipyard with kind of a killer instinct. CRANK, though, he's going for that Stargate, so we are going to see something a bit different.
Okay, finally a Stargate. This is my suggestion to him, so we'll see if I'm an idiot or if he actually manages to do some damage with this. But still sentries defending at home. I mean, so games 2 and 3, he had a lot of sentries and immortals, but
Yes.
moved out too early and they died, basically.
That's
Actually, no.
right.
Well, Game 2, they lived, but it turned into a base trade and it was heartbreaking. But Game 3, he moved out a little bit too early, wasn't paying attention, and died. This time, it looks like he's actually got the mindset of, I need to defend my base, so it could go a lot better for him. We'll have to see, A, how aggressive HyuN is going to be, and B, how many sentries he actually ends up getting. He is going a Void Ray first, which I think is interesting. I feel like getting 2 to 3 Phoenixes roaming around right now would be a lot more helpful, but Void Rays, they're always tricky to me, because sometimes they just do absolutely nothing, and sometimes they manage to kill queens, they manage to kill spores, they just do a ton of work. So
I think this is one of those times when it could turn out to be pretty decent, because HyuN actually decided to go. You remember back at the Hot Import Nights event when Dongrygu decided to overdrone a little bit, Hero was able to take advantage of it really easily. It's kind of what we saw out of HyuN just now. Now, if he pulls this off,
he's got spores coming
he's
up.
going to be in such a good economic spot, but he did overdrone quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, his tech structures came out quite a bit later, about the 50 drone mark rather than the 35 drone mark.
Yeah, so these 6 spore crawlers from HyuN make me think that it's going to be very difficult to do that economic damage that he needs to do with this. The best he can hope for at this point is killing off some overlords, which of course is still nice. So
He got 2 of them.
yeah, he's already got 2 overlords, the 2 nearest to his base. If he can hunt down and find the rest of them, it'll be really good. The Phoenix is going to do the scouting and figure out where these spore crawlers are now, so the Void Ray can try to get a little bit better position. I like the Overlord huddle right here. The Phoenix is not going to be able to do anything to that.
So we have the Hydralisk Den coming out of HyuN right now, but this is a great bait and switch from CranK. He's going to make very minimal Stargate units, and as we can see, switch right into Colossi. So
Might we see a Colossus this game?
Yeah, I think we are. It's going to be Game 5 of a PvC, and we're going to see our first Colossus. But this is brilliant, because this is exactly what CranK needs to do, and I love this style of gameplay.
Yeah, and he's actually being a little bit more greedy. He's actually built a 3rd Nexus for the first time, I think. So he is actually being good. He might be able to defend this. Actually, this is a pretty large number of Lings. It's really going to matter on HyuN how aggressive he wants to be. Obviously, Force Fields could bounce the Lings off there as well, so I don't think HyuN had any delusions of being able to take that out. CranK sitting nicely with his 3rd base. This Overseer is going to bite the dust here soon. What did he just build there? He built more gateways. Okay.
Yeah.
Adding on, it was just in a weird spot. I was like, what is he building behind his 3rd Vespene Geyser or 3rd base? I don't know. Yeah, so even the Observer is going to have to be careful with all these spores out on the map. Overseer's already obviously being produced as well. Nice kill there. That is going to block HyuN briefly and give CranK a little bit more time to get these Colossi started.
And HyuN is advancing with his Hydralisks, but there's Colossus #1. If that gets into play here, but is HyuN going to be able to get this round before the Colossus catches up? Those were pretty good force fields, though, and the block is going to be enough for a lot of these units to do their damage initially. In fact, the sentries have survived for a pretty long period of time. Another pretty good set of force fields there as well, and CranK actually holding on pretty efficiently so far.
Yeah, I didn't see the Hydralisk range upgrade. We extended Thermal Lances up there on the board. It's at half, about halfway done. No, they haven't got their upgrade yet, have they? So.
The Hydralisk have. Yeah.
Oh, they did.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
They have
so,
Bruce Mines, yeah.
So they might be able to actually take out this Colossus before too many sweeps happen. But the sentries look like they had just enough energy before being killed to actually prevent the Hydras from being able to do that. So CranK actually holding an attack for the first time in the series.
And holding it very efficiently to the point where HyuN's actually in kind of a rough spot. He's committed down a couple of tech paths now that are going to be a little more difficult to switch out of. He's got to eventually put down that Infestation Pit, throw down to 4th base, and go up to higher tech, because destroying waves of units against an ever-increasing Colossus count, especially now that range is just about to finish up, would be disastrous. Oh, but one of the Colossi fall. The 2nd Colossus is still hanging around, and we'll see if there's enough here for HyuN to just kind of punch on through.
I like this. CranK is actually warping in the Zealots right in the face of the Hydralisk so that they don't have a chance to move up and pick off that 2nd Colossus that was, of course, doing the bulk of the damage. Phoenix coming in now trying to help, but getting picked off. Yeah, so CranK with nice warp ends actually managed to keep that 2nd Colossus alive and actually, stem the attack a little bit. The Nexus is going to go down, though, so HyuN has to be satisfied with that. There's another hatchery coming up for HyuN now as well, so he'll be on 4 bases against only 2.
Okay, now with that Nexus kill, things have turned around a little bit, as HyuN is in a much better position than he was just a second ago. As we can see, getting ready to drop some more workers on gas here so we can eventually tech up. Now, we haven't seen an Infestation Pit to the best of my knowledge, so obviously Hive is still quite a ways off.
Yep. No Infestation Pit obviously means that he's going to be staying on Roach Hydra a little bit longer. He doesn't have any in production right now. No fighting units in production, just drone, drone, drone. He's trying to get that fourth base saturated while there's a little bit of downtime here. And while he has CranK contained, he knows that he bought himself some time by killing that Nexus. He's going to build a Spire, actually, before an Infestation Pit even. So 26 more Lings coming in to supplement this force. He's still got a large standing army. So he went in there and killed the Nexus, managed to keep an army alive, doesn't have to focus too many resources on rebuilding, which is nice. Obviously just picked off an observer there as well, so he's got map control once again, and CranK, basically all he can do is sit around waiting for his third base to get established again.
He's still not in the worst of spots, though. I mean, he has a very sizable army. Just a handful of sentries and a couple Colossi can hold a very large ground-based Zerg army at bay. So HyuN really does need a pretty good engagement. He's going to need to kill this Nexus again. If he doesn't kill that Nexus, if CranK is able to hold there, he's still going to be mighty fine. So here comes HyuN right now. Photon cannons are already in place, and HyuN already backing up.
Yep, HyuN, wow, that's actually just a huge force that he's got there. I'm a little bit surprised he's banking so much right now without being maxed, but obviously once the Spire gets done, he'll be able to build a flock of Mutalisks. I'm curious if he's going to do the sort of divide and conquer maneuver with his Mutalisks that he's going to build here, or if he's going to try and keep it all in one sort of big blob. I mean, I have to imagine he's going to split them up just because of the way the bases are here on... Oh, he's going... Okay, that obviously makes sense. Corruptors to take out the Colossi, and they'll be able to get position from basically anywhere. Because of the way the natural and the third base are here on Cloud Kingdom, Corruptors can come in from the top while the rest of the ground forces come in from the right side, for example, and still be able to pick off those Colossi pretty easily. Infestation Pit finally getting started, and Twilight Council just got finished there for CranK.
So we will eventually see Hive Tech and Tier 3 Tech out of HyuN, but CranK has been able to sit back and basically max out on 3 bases at the top of his tech as well. Now, he just finished up his Twilight Council, so it's still a very long way until he gets the upgrades that he wants at this stage of the game. And of course, he doesn't have Blink quite yet. There we go. Finally does just start that. That will be critical in taking out the Corruptors.
Yeah, and I mean, he's going to have to chrono boost that because this attack is happening right now. As soon as the Corruptors get in position, we'll see those Colossi start to go down. All these force fields went out actually far enough ahead of everything that even the Stalkers aren't really taking any damage there. One Colossus is getting super low. I'm not sure, HyuN.
One did go down a second is about to fall as well, and the Nexus goes down once again. So HyuN decides to just kind of move in and brute force his way through, but that is going to open up a counterattack from CranK.
19 Hydralisks in production right now, 7 Corruptors and 12 Lings. Going to take HyuN all the way to max. He did kill a couple of Colossi, but it wasn't enough, wasn't fast enough either to prevent him from losing a lot of forces. So he did spend that huge bank getting up all this production right now. I'm not sure if CranK's going to be able to do this counterattack again. He has to establish his third base. He can't have those probes distance mining for so long, and he cannot really leave that exposed either, because at this point, HyuN could just show up with 25 Lings or something and kill that Nexus repeatedly. So CranK is still going to have to figure out a nice balance between offense and defense. Obviously, those 3 Zealots are going to work their way to the top left and not going to find any hatcheries there, and if they walk onto the creep, then obviously HyuN could be aware of their attack, so shouldn't be too much damage from those.
Okay, so once again, CranK has to be very careful here. Blink is not quite finished yet. It's still 5 seconds away, so the Corruptors are doing quite a bit of damage. The last Colossus is going to fall. One more now starting to circle around from the side. The Corruptors have died en masse, though, and there's the Blink forward. A couple more going down, and the Corruptor count has been lessened quite significantly.
Yeah, another big Blink forward, and he's going to start picking off these slow Hydras, and once they turn to fight, the Colossus is already there to start picking them off. The Corruptors are going to try to do their job here. Stalkers just blinking preemptively. They know that the Colossus is going to go down, so they try to get a little bit better concave on the ground units. Corruptors obviously not going to do anything to them. Now that the Colossi are down, they don't have much function, so this huge number of Stalkers and Sentry is actually going to be able to bulldoze right into here. The Zealots did some scouting work for him, so he knows there's not a lot of here to stop him, so going to be able to pick off this Queen. Right now it seems to be only Roaches really stopping him from picking up multiple hatcheries here.
All right, well, HyuN is very close to losing quite a bit here, as you kind of pointed out, and the reinforcements are trickling in for CranK, adding that, continuing into that Colossus count. It looks like he's going to try and establish a 4th base. Absolutely necessary now. It's going to be difficult to hold on to at first, but if he can get a nice little defensive ring around it, he should be just fine. Oh, okay, that Colossus pathing was really strange there for a second, but thankfully it doesn't get caught too far out.
One more favorable engagement from CranK, and I think he might be able to just do what he needs to do to win this game. But it's gonna be down to this next fight, I believe. One Stalker does get picked off, but that's actually good for CranK because now he knows exactly where those forces are. He is gonna possibly lose some. Oh wow, that's not a tight wall at all. So some Lings are gonna run right into the main, all the way into the main. There's a lot of probes not doing anything in there, but he does a warp in of Zealots to try and stem that damage from getting too far out of hand. The Zealots should be fine there. There's a large number of Lings here still in the natural, though, actually taking out mining probes. That's a lot bigger threat. And now over at near the 4th base that CranK was trying to establish, he's already prepared for the bulk of the army. He didn't overcommit to trying to defend his 3rd. He realizes he has a good army size here and a little bit of an advantage if they were to fight just heads up. So he does stop the attacks at his main and natural. He's got just a massive Stalker count right now to be able to continue a counterattack.
And he may do just that here in a bit. What is the current army count? 28 Roaches, 9 Hydras, 10 Corruptors for HyuN against the 3 Colossi, 7 Zealots, 42 Blink Stalkers, and 3 Sentries of CranK. So CranK going to roll his way right up the front. He is almost max once again. Looks like he just kind of wants to bull rush his way through, and he may be able to do just that. He's going to kind of goad his opponent into attacking into an unfavorable position, and CranK, with that really nice position up the ramp, would be able to defend very, very easily.
Yep, so now, wow, HyuN actually committing a little bit too much there. One big blink forward would have trapped a lot of those Roaches, and I think CranK does have the firepower to be able to slow this down. Corruptors with not a lot of targets, taking out the Colossus. Actually, still one Colossus standing. They're taking way too much time to kill those off. The Colossi actually killed a lot more than they should have, but now we've got the blink micro starting. Rather than the huge blink forward, he is just going to continue blinking them back, groups at a time, to keep them alive even longer, keeping the healthy shielded ones in the front. And now CranK just tied on supply, actually, with HyuN. It's kind of interesting. Not doing any weapons right now, but still the Stalker force is going to be very hard for HyuN to stop with his current unit mixture.
Maybe tied on supply, but these Corruptors, yes, they have the Corruption spell. Yes, they can make these forces take a little bit more damage, but still kind of dead weight at this stage of the game. So this Blink Stalker force is just continuing to grow. I'm surprised we haven't seen any Templar yet, because there's a kind of an excess of gas now for CranK, but he is sitting on 4 bases altogether. There's pretty good Blink Micro once again, picking off units slowly but surely, and HyuN's still kind of in a bad position here. Once again, I want to reiterate, I'm a little surprised that there are no Templar out at the moment, but CranK still looks like he has enough just with the army he's got.
Yep, and I think you're right. He's got just enough Stalkers. His army size is a little bit higher because the supply looks so close. HyuN actually has a lot more workers alive because CranK did lose a lot to those Lings, so you have to keep that in mind. There's a lot more Stalkers here than there are Hydralisks and Roaches. So 34, 38 Lings in production right now. HyuN is basically just mashing the button, trying to get out as many units as he can to keep this huge wall of Stalkers from bouncing in. And now all the drones are being pulled. Corruptors trying to do as much as they can. Those little worm guys in the air, not able to do anything right now, not able to attack anything. But the Stalkers are trying to focus down these Roaches and Hydras as fast as they can. Hydras flooding in now. But the Stalker Blink Micro is so good, keeping the shielded units at the front. The Concave is much better for the Stalkers. HyuN is losing out on this fight the longer it goes. And another warp in there from CranK. That pylon, I didn't even notice that, so he's able to just continue warping in during the fight. And now that all the Hydralisks are down, it's going to be pure Lings to try and stop this. HyuN GG!